Welcome to another episode of Full Circle with me, Onyx. And I just want to, I've been thinking about doing card readings professionally and astrology readings, channeling. I haven't fully decided how that's going to go and how I'm going to make the readings transformational. Uh, Being connected to the universe is really a fundamental step that needs to happen on the magical path, the wizarding path. And there's really always so much to talk about uh, in the subject of magic and spirituality, self transformation, and it's hard to talk about one element separately because it distorts the context. Like, there's relationships, there's what's called a tensegrity model, and it's all the parts and pieces support each other. No piece stands alone. And we see this in Buckminster Fuller's geodesic dome. Uh, and the structure of geodesic spheres. Um, they're amazing structures, and they work so well because all the parts and pieces work together. And so the ability to create relationships is a key component for creating spreads. So when you start examining a spread, there should be some type of, the cards need to all relate to each other. The past relates to the present, relates to the future, and blah, blah, blah. But so, that's a subject. And uh, there's just so much stuff, so much information. It all just becomes thought. It all just becomes philosophy. It all just becomes a symbolic roadmap. And there's a huge gap between how do we live our lives and integrate the intuitive information that, whether you're channeling an angel or you're gaining access to the Akashic records, or, that's all very other dimensional. How do you put that into practice in your daily life? How does this spiritual information give you an advantage that increases the well-beingness of your life? And it's almost like, so I've been watching different card readers online, and where is one of them I watch? He's very practical, and it's always usually about relationships and, how they're thinking and what's their next move, and possibly how you're feeling and the situation. And he's really good with that. And then there's another reader I really respect, and his stuff is very intuitive and kind of straight to the point, but kind of cryptic. And it seems like a lot of the readings just kind of validate the past. They might validate some stuff you were thinking, but the events never seem to materialize. So, as far as predictive elements for a future, it seems to be falling short a little bit all across the board. And so, this is kind of like obviously doing with readings, but we got to remember card readings is a magical process. Praying can be a magical process, you know. And so a lot of people are doing the magical process with a ordinary 3D mindset. And or they're also trying to take unrelatable elements of a fourth and fifth dimensional nature and making it relate to the 3D nature, when by the very laws of physics, there's kind of a disconnect. Square peg, round hole. And so I feel, as I kind of try to talk this out, this massive information, yeah, I'm like, yeah, square peg, round hole, religion, square peg, round hole, government, square peg, round hole, any system, education. Uh, and that's because we're trying to make one thing rule all things. And so there's a limitation with card reading. There's a limitation with other people creating law for you and enforcing law. You know, basically creating the do's and don'ts of society. I would assume that's government. Governing over. So when the government assumes too much responsibility, square peg round hole. When the people that is being governed give too much responsibility to the government, on the flip side, square peg round hole. And so same with guides. uh there's a big misunderstanding. I feel like spirituality is sold and packaged to people, uh promising more than it actually does. And so I feel like there's a lot of people, many are called, few are chosen. Many are called or bribed to explore spirituality with the promise of psychic abilities, with the promise of prosperity, with the promise of relationships. So, whether it's knowledge you're being promised to improve your life, or energy power through association and affiliation with higher beings, and or the cultivation and development of your own power, the carrot on the stick is your life is going to be better. You've got enough points, and now your salvation, your life beyond the veil, is going to somehow be improved. And so I feel like we need to eat some humble pie. We need to dial it back a notch, get basic, and improve your basic skills, and put the responsibility back on you. It's a development. It's an ongoing scientific project, developing your psychic abilities, or mastering your magical abilities, becoming the witch, becoming the sorcerer, becoming the wizard, becoming the demigod, uh, the awakened one, becoming enlightened. Your journey is so important. And we're not showing the journey. We reward people for finishing the race, for flexing their muscles, for looking beautiful, but we don't really applaud. We don't really give credit to the long process. So I watched a little video on Nikola Tesla, and it was kind of like a little bit of his backstory. And he had challenges, and yes, he was a genius, but he had his own set of challenges, and he actually had raw genius ability, but he had to side that with a real education, and pretty much self-taught. He read tons and tons of books, and then went through universities and stuff, and he applied himself. So yeah, he was a genius, and obviously had his third eye on, and obviously had connection to higher powers, a true wizard. But then, to take that fifth dimensional mind of his, he had to pair it with 3D doing, 3D application of reading all those books, learning those languages, speaking it, building prototypes, making it happen. So it had to be equally matched with real world experience to develop and manifest and midwife through uh, his creations of more efficient engines. So I think a lot of people don't view magic as science. You know, we talk about it, we allude to it, we sit back and go, well, that's a great idea. You know, we're okay with just having it be ideas. You know, it almost stays in the realm of fantasy. But the reality, if you look around, there is so much magic going on, so much ritual going on. And so it's like, it's time to start. You're an experiment, you're a work in progress, and your readings, if that is the magic that you're specializing in, there is definitely a laboratory called your card reading table. And you have your scientific tools, your cards, and you have to treat them appropriately. I see so many people just not handling their cards correctly. It's like if those were knives, you're just throwing them out on the table haphazardly. And like life is kind of a mirror. I can tell by the way you handle your cards, the way your mind is working. I can see your value system. And I, it's like when these objects become too mundane, just pieces of paper, when they become not sacred anymore, having a high personal value and meaning, infused with a sense of spirit. Like meaning connects things, it connects ideas, it connects ideas in action. Meaning is like a bridge from these other states of awareness to this realm. So, value and meaning are so important. And so, the reason why people gravitate towards cards is because it's so much easier than like cutting open an animal and reading its entrails, or, you know, burning it and looking at the black smoke. These are ancient ways of divination. Or fasting for long periods of time until your ego, your physical vehicle, till your regular everyday thinking is stretched to its limits and snaps, and you have moments of spiritual insight downloads. So, cards became very handy. They're lightweight, you can pack them around, and they have become very trendy, this type of divination system. But divinate, divine, divining, there should probably be a connection to spirit. So I really think the Hierophant card, the Pope, the Priest card in the tarot deck is a really key card. When we look in the Crowley deck, there is a key. And I believe in the Rider Waite, there's a couple keys crossing over his head. I don't know exactly. It's been a while since I've looked at that deck. There is a key right there. This Hierophant is a go-between the everyday people, the people who have to work, the people who have responsibilities of raising kids, of keeping the community alive. And then there's this Pope who's supposed to be kind of divinely blessed by God. and is kind of a go-between, a middleman. So the shaman served as the middleman. The high priestess serves as the middleman. The king serves as the middleman. The emperor serves as a middleman. So when I start thinking of all of the high cards, they are two-faced. One is facing the material world. The other one is facing God, the divine. So divine kingship is a real thing. Divine authority is a real thing. In a lot of my personal channelings, when I'm connecting with what I believe the angels, the angelic realm, and the Christian mythology, those archetypes, uh, they always introduce and relay information about authority and the word and so are you authorized to communicate with these beings? Authorship. Do you sign your name to the book? Do you put your name behind what you say, what you speak, what you create, what you write and live? Being an author, being a writer, and so when we look at people in their established career of their talent and chosen path, they get that double-sided nature of like an artist. An artist paints their work, they materialize that with one side, one face, and but the other side is facing the great unknown, the mystery, the divine. They're channeling in, they're being inspired. So I really think of the god Janos, the two-faced god who was like a portal, uh, facing two directions. The lions that used to be at the gates of Egypt to welcome people, double facing lions, facing two directions or facing the same direction. The serpents at the third eye, double, facing each other, facing away from each other. This weaving, this alchemy process. So you can think of temperance, the combination of yin and yang. Once again, we're pairing opposites. And also realizing they are opposites. So on this journey of making tarot divine again, sacred again, not everyone has access to the divine. We all have, at some level, access to the divine, but our ability to comprehend it is dependent on our level of consciousness and our personal level of intelligence. So if I was a fish and I was having a divine experience of God, source energy, the mystery, whatever we call it, I might assume it's a fish like me. And I would relate to it at my level of awareness. If I was if I was an elephant, I might have a vision of a divine elephant and it would be like me. So when we think about having an experience with the divine, we tend to see things in our own image, in our own level of consciousness. An example is I had a friend, she was going through some stuff. So she told me that when she had her breakdown, she screamed and yelled at God, threw her temper tantrum, and that was her way of connecting to the divine. God in our own image tells me, okay, but maybe that's not my way. Maybe that works for you. Maybe you see the divine as some adult that you get to throw a temper tantrum and maybe they reward you with a cupcake. I don't know. So your ability to connect to the divine in the magical art of divination is really important. And if the source is this mystery data bank, you might want to let go of your beliefs, your attitude, what you think you know about the cards. Like, you have to have a base level of information. But then after that base level, you have to open it up to the art of how the information can be manipulated in very abstract terms, in very concrete terms. So art is a really good one. Uh, Abstract painters are using the same paints, the same brushes as a realist painter. And the images they look different, yet they can be just as profound and striking, just as valuable. So Picasso is a great example of someone who's connected to a higher power. He was a Scorpio. And definitely powerful images. Um, and then I will have to maybe compare that to someone else. Uh, Geez, so much for my art history knowledge. You pick an artist who maybe specializes in something more realistic, more detailed, like, and the price value could be equal. Uh, so eyes of the beholder is, a thing there. Let's move on. So, like, the whole point of this video kind of was I quit my job, my everyday mundane job. It was getting pretty toxic and negative. But what was really wearing me out was just the repetition of the same old, going to the same old building, clocking at the same time, meeting the same customers, dealing with the same mind numbing products. I outgrew that space. So so I was like, I need to get back to myself. I'm done being a robot for something I'm not passionate about. So I was like, time to meditate, time. And like the first 3 days, I didn't realize how much extra stress my body was holding just by doing really easy work. It was just not engaging. I wasn't passionate about it. So, 3 days later, I'm meditating and I have this grand vision that I'm way just kind of separate from my body. I'm in another dimension. And in this dimension, it's like a giant sphere of dark blue, a perfect sphere that I'm in, but it's giant. I'm near the circumference of this sphere, but this sphere is huge. It's like as big as our solar system. And through this sphere, from like the bottom and the top, moving all the way through the center, like the drilled hole in a bead, is this column of light. Just electric white light. Just an endless stream of energy. And I'm in this giant sphere. And I'm like, I'm in a realm. And I was just there. 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 And I could go about my day. And then I could dial back into that state and see the vision again. And I was just there. So there's meditating onyx in this giant sphere. And I was like, what is this all about? And there's the legend of Shiva. Shiva was immeasurable light beam. And the gods tried to find its source. They went all the way down and they couldn't see where it started. And they went all the way up and they couldn't see where it ended. It was endless beam of like energy. And I was like, oh my gosh, here I am. having my own vision of the divine masculine, who in relationship I was also having a vision of the divine feminine, the sphere, this endless giant sphere whose edge I really couldn't see. I just knew I was in a sphere. It was that which was, it was amazing. And I come out of the meditation and the vision once again because it went on for a few days. And I'm like, how do I didn't even know what to do. And then I just looked down on the floor and there's my card deck. And then I was like, bam, I've now had my vision of the Ace of Swords. Swords is the masculine sign. It's air sign in astrology. An Ace of Swords, the one, the beginning, the indivisible. There it was. And so now I have a personalized relationship with my consciousness, with my living experience of maybe a divine image in my own psyche, or maybe it was an actual realm I was in, navigating. And so the meaning of the Ace of Swords has taken on a whole new dimension. It has transcended the base level of reading. I can literally just channel that. And a lot of that had to do with I was really focusing on Aquarius mind. I've been watching a few videos on Aquarius. One lady talked about, she is an Aquarius, and she talked about Aquarians are crown chakra down. Another little video with a robot voice was talking about Aquarius, and it said their mind is a singularity. And so it's just amazing that, of course, I would meet Shiva in that laser bolt energy, that electrical white light, and also must meet the dark goddess. So it's like in this tree of life, it's the divine masculine and it's the divine feminine. Forces inseparable. One suggests the other. They're indivisible. It just depends upon what you choose to notice. So I noticed the beam of light. It was prominent, but in the backdrop and all around is the goddess. The god could not exist without the goddess. So is this also simultaneously a vision of the chalice, the cup, the Ace of Cups? And yes, but I've also had a vision of the Ace of Cups. I had many shamanic journeys with the Ace of Cups being the cup of death and the cup of addiction. We're always addicted to death, and enlightenment is death. Self-transformation is death. So I have been drinking from the cup of death for a long time. And as this divine water flows through me, realization happens. So life springs forth, a higher level of understanding, higher level of intuition. So this is how you relate your everyday world, your outer world of situations and events, your inner world of psychic visions and structures, meaningful visions, and stuff even that could be of other dimensions. But you can anchor it into the symbols of your cards, and they pack a more powerful punch. It's not just for reading, but I'll never look at the Ace of Swords, again, the same way. I will always see the vision. I'll always see the sphere, the goddess. There is Kali right in front of me. There is Shiva right in front of me. Here's the divine kingship, the crown. And so now I also see all of the upper cards, the greater mystery, the greater arcana, the 22 cards, is something you can't even access unless you are in your kingship power. You have to have your crown activated. You have to be at that level to understand that double nature of these 22 experiences of a double-faced being. One face is facing the mortal world or interacting with it, and the other face is interacting with the divine. That goes, and so it's like a veil, and the four aces, the vision of the four aces pierces that veil. The four aces are the angels, like in a way. So this double nature in tarot was revealed through the vision of the god and the goddess. And so it's changed me in a very profound way. I can never interact with the world again. I can never see myself again the same way. I have been so transformed through the vision, you know, and then I get to take this gnosis, this inner knowledge, my experience, my mastery, my dedication that spawned in a vision. It spawned in an event that was a vision and imparted with me a personal knowledge. That is gnosis. I'm not reliant on someone else's information. That might have just been the building blocks, the scaffolding. You know, it's just they're crutches. All the knowledge we have of the occult, they're just uh, little structures that must be destroyed. You know, you having the experience, being connected to the divine. I don't see anything wrong with praying for 3 hours. I don't see anything wrong with being in the presence of a divine being for is being addicted to it. I don't see anything wrong with that. When you are you're building a relationship with the divine. And so obviously everything you say is going to be more intense, more powerful. Like this whole deck now could be the Hierophant.